Okay, this is One Take Frank, and this is going to be part 2 of our series of making the Southern style pork ribs and tomato sauce for our pasta. So we're going to show you today, I had it in the refrigerator, we're going to show you how to take the grease off the top, but before we do that, what I'm going to make is a side of broccoli rabe to go along with that meal. So right now what I have is 4 bunches of broccoli rabe this size. Okay, this is typically how they come in the store. And what I do is I cut the stems off, and I'm going to show you what I do for each bunch. I do the same thing. I just line them up so all the stems are going to be even to the bottom. I'm going to literally just cut off the brown spot of the stems on the broccoli rabe in preparing them. And then I'm going to still leave the store. The store still comes with the little tie on the broccoli rabe. So with that tie on, it's perfectly where I'm going to just cut the stems off. And the reason why I do that is I cook the stems separately from the broccoli rabe because these are a little tougher. So I cook these for about 5 to 7 minutes in water. Now when I cook these broccoli rabe, I usually cook them in a stock pot this size, okay? And I put about I fill about a quarter away with water. The reason why I do that because I don't really want to boil the broccoli rabe. I more or less want to just steam them. So by putting in a quarter cup of broccoli rabe, that works out pretty good. And I'm going to just salt my water. It's just coming to a boil now. And I'm going to take my stems and I'm going to rinse them off thoroughly in some cold water. Want to just make sure there's no dirt or sand on these on the stems of these broccoli rabe. Now broccoli rabe traditionally is like an Italian vegetable. Growing up in an Italian home, we've always had broccoli rabe. Most people I talk to about them don't even know what it is. Until recently now they've become more readily available in the store so people usually see them. They're kind of like a cross I've heard between broccoli and spinach. But I don't really know that to be true. So my water's boiling. I'm going to drop my stems into the boiling water. And I'm going to set my timer I'm going to set it for 6 minutes. And let that go. So while that's going, and while that's steaming, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take all the leafy part of the broccoli rabe with the little florets that are on the end. And see those florets? They kind of do look like broccoli. So I guess that's where they get the name broccoli rabe. We used to just call them rabe when I was growing up. So I'm going to take these broccoli rabe, I'm going to put them in the strainer, and I'm going to kind of rinse them off, again with cold water. I do recommend you clean your sink out first. I take everything out of the sink, I wipe it down, make sure it's really clean when I do this because some of these stems tend to get into the sink. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just rinse off all my broccoli rabe. And I'm going to put it back in the bowl. Just make sure they're very good. Get a good rinse on everything. I finished rinsing off and making sure my broccoli rabe is pretty clean. I'm going to put these in the pot in about 2 minutes while the stems are still steaming in the pot. And once these start to go, when I put those in the pot, I'm going to let them steam for about 15 minutes. And I'm only stirring maybe once or twice during that process. Also what I do is I like a lot of garlic, so I put in like a whole head of garlic inside my broccoli rabe. And I just leave the cloves whole, and once I put the broccoli rabe in the pot, I just dump the garlic in there. And what that does is, it definitely adds to the flavor of the broccoli rabe, gives it some garlic flavor. And the reason why I leave them whole is because if you don't like garlic in your food, you can see it very visibly, and you just take it out and put it to the side, as opposed to rather mincing it with a garlic press, or slicing it too thin. So if you don't like it this way, you're able to take it out. And me personally, I love garlic, so I just eat these cloves like they're candy. That's just me. And I do like broccoli rabe too. It's actually one of my favorite vegetables. Just so you know, broccoli rabe is actually pretty nutritious also. It has a lot of vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin K, iron, folate. It's kind of low calorie for you also. So that's just to name a few of the vitamins that it has. But it's actually very good for you. So with that being said, my broccoli rabe is almost done. And while that's getting done, I'm going to just take out an empty yogurt container that I set aside yesterday. And I'm going to go in the refrigerator and I'm going to grab that pork sauce that we made yesterday. And if you remember, we were going to go now, and I showed you how to take the grease off the top of the meat using a spoon when the sauce was still hot. But today I'm going to show you how to take it off when it's cold, and it kind of gelatinous. It gets gelatinous on the top of the meat and the sauce, and you can easily just pick it off with a fork, and you can get it off that way. I'm using the word gelatinous, but it's more like kind of hardens over the top, so it makes it very easy to take off. So before I do that, we got about a few seconds here. Actually, we have 20 seconds to be exact. So I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of my broccoli rabe into my pot, just like this. And once you put it in the pot, the boiling kind of stops because it kind of the temperature of the cold broccoli rabe are actually setting the temperature off on the boiling water. So we just have to bring it back to a boil again. So I raised my temperature a little high again. So we're done with that. And I'm going to just get a spoon, and we're going to mix this in now. If you see how much broccoli rabe is in here, I probably could use a little less water because these bunches are a little smaller than what I usually get. A lot of times I get enough broccoli rabe that this pot is literally heaping over with the broccoli rabe. But once you cover it and let it steam, it all kind of just cooks right down. So I'm going to leave my broccoli rabe in the water just like that, and I'm going to dump in that whole head of garlic. I already salted my water, so we're good to go. Even though it didn't come to a boil yet, I'm going to just cover it, and I'm going to put my the timer on for 15 minutes. And by that time, it's actually 16 minutes, will be good. And by that time, it'll be perfectly done. It pretty comes out good every time. I mean, this is the way I sort of like the broccoli rabe. So with that being said, we're going to go now and take the grease off of the top of our sauce and the meat. So if you take a look in the pot, you'll see right now what it looks like as far as the grease forming on the top of the tomato sauce. Here's our meat. Here's our sauce, which is very thick right now. And what I'm going to do is, here's the grease that's right here. And as you can see, look how easy it's just going to come off right now. And I typically just use, I mean, you can use whatever you want. I just save a yogurt container, because then I could just toss the whole thing in the garbage. You don't want to get this in your sink because it'll clog your drain. So there you go. Here goes all that grease right off. Look at that, just coming right off the top of that sauce there. Great little technique. And I'll tell you, the reason why I do this also is because while this meat stays in this sauce overnight, the sauce and the pork meat sort of marry. And I guess that's where they get the word marinade. I don't know, I just kind of made that up. But, and it gives the sauce a much more richer flavor, as well as it almost kind of tenderizes the meat a little bit by staying in there too. And I think too, as I leave the pot, when you leave this sauce on the side to cool before you put it in the refrigerator, I always find that heat actually almost cooks the meat a little bit too, a little bit more. It kind of gets the meat a little more tender from just sitting in that hot sauce. Because it does take the sauce quite a bit of time to cool. Alright, so I got pretty much all the fat off of here. And again, once we heat this up, if there's any more fat that seems to form on top, or grease that seems to form on top, you could always just scoop that off with a spoon like we did yesterday. Alright, so that's it. We're good with that. Let me just get rid of this. The trash. I'm going to just wipe my spoon off, my fork off, I'm sorry. Throw that into the trash. Okay, I'm going to put this on the stove. My rag here. I got some water on here, I just want to wipe this off. Okay, I'm going to put this sauce on like a very low heat, because what I want to have happen is I want to slowly heat this up and actually simmer this meat so the meat gets hot. Okay, but at the same time, I don't want to get start to come to simmer too fast, because what will happen is the meat that's on the bottom of the pot will tend to stick to the bottom of the pot, and it'll be hard getting it off, and it might even get burned. So I just kind of go slowly, and I kind of move it around as it goes. Now, when you move this around, the meat around, be careful, because it's been cooked, it's kind of tender, and I'm trying my best not to separate the bones from the meat. I like to keep it all intact. And I try to keep the pork loin itself intact to the rib end. So it kind of, when it comes out, it makes a better presentation of the dish. So we're going to let this go. I got it on a slow heat, and we'll see how long it goes. The time is all dependent upon your stove and how much you heat up. But once you see the sauce start to simmer in there and come to simmer, I usually let it simmer for about 15 minutes, just to make sure the meat gets really hot to serve. So my broccoli rabe is now boiling. We've got about 12 minutes left on the broccoli rabe. And once that broccoli rabe is done, I'm going to get my water ready for my pasta. So we'll try to have everything ready. The broccoli rabe will be done ahead of time. I'm going to just keep that covered as a side dish. And I want the pasta and the sauce to be ready at the same time. So we're going to be back in a few minutes once that broccoli rabe is done, and we'll get ready to start making our pasta. The broccoli rabe are done. Timer just went off, so I'm going to just turn the stove off on the broccoli rabe. It's still coming to a little boil. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just take out the broccoli rabe and put them into a bowl. And I want to try and get as least amount of water in here as I possibly can. And typically, the way I know they're ready, and I should have probably done this before I turned the stove off, but they do look like they're ready, is I'll take one of the stems. I try and find a thick stem that's in the and I can tell they're ready just by the stem. And I just take a taste. Oh, that's hot, but that's good. Perfect. Those are perfectly done. So I'm going to take out the broccoli rabe, place it into my bowl. Now you're going to see there's a lot of garlic in there, and I do love a lot of garlic. And I will tell you, just by tasting that stem, there's a lot of flavor too in it of the garlic, so that's good. Gotta finish plating that on there. Looking good. Okay, just about done with all that. A few last little pieces in the pot. I don't know if you've ever had broccoli rabe, but I'll tell you, one of the best parts of the broccoli rabe is those little florets. They're very tender. Perfect. Very good. Excellent. Okay, so that's it with the broccoli rabe. I have a couple little pieces of garlic in here. So once I get the broccoli rabe out of the pot, the next thing I do is, there's still going to be a little water in here, so I just take this over to my sink and I just kind of hold the strainer the way I have it, and I just pour any of the excess water off, and there is probably about close to half a cup coming out. I just want to get all my water out as much as you can. There's, no matter what you do, there's always going to be a little water left in the broccoli rabe, but I get probably about 95% of it out. Okay, once that's out, I just take a little extra virgin olive oil, and I'm going to just drizzle it on top a little bit. And this is going to kind of work its way in. There you go. I'll tell you, if I get a good piece of Italian bread, and that's Alalio bread I had gotten yesterday, and this, with that bread, maybe a piece of super salad, or maybe just a piece of that pork, I'm good. That's a meal for me. All right, so I'm going to just move the broccoli rabe a little bit so the olive oil will get into the bottom of it, which it will seep in. Okay. So what I'm going to do next is, I still have my sauce on the stove. It's still cooking. I'm going to just keep this covered. And I'm going to put this in the oven just to stay warm till we're ready to eat dinner. And we're going to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead now and make our pasta. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to use a pot this size. I'm going to fill according to the directions with how much water is on the box of the pasta. I'm going to cook the pasta And once the pasta's ready, the sauce should be ready. And it's just started. It was about 10 minutes. And I do have this very low because I want this to come to a boil or come to a simmer really slowly. So it's just starting to loosen up now a little bit. So it's going to take a little bit more time. So I'm going to let that go. And we'll be back in a few with the pasta, with the sauce, and we'll plate it all together. And we'll eat. We're back now. We're going to finish out the rest of this southern style pork loin ribs with our sauce and pasta and the side of broccoli rabe. So I've got my sauce. It's simmering pretty good. It's been simmering for about maybe 10 minutes now. And my pasta's in the pot. It's going to be ready in about 2 minutes. I made a fettuccine today with this. So I'm going to go ahead and take my sauce. So we're going to bring it over here on the counter. Okay, oh, that looks pretty good. Bubbling away there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out my meat and plate, put it in the serving plate. So we're going to start putting it out just like that. Now I'm going to show you something. When I plate this, see how sometimes the loin actually comes apart from the rib. Which, if that happens, that's okay. Because when I put it in the plate, I actually kind of serve the rib, the loin part on one end of the plate, and the ribs on the other. As that happens. One thing I want to tell you too, when you make any kind of sauce using meat with bones in it, like pork neck bones or these pork loins like this, I tend to always use caution at the bottom of the pot, because sometimes some residual bones are on the bottom of the pot, and you don't want to get that in your sauce and potentially eat it. Like you see, look how nice the meat falls right off the bone. I mean, this bone is like clean off that pork, which means we did a pretty good job cleaning that off, cooking that kind of like perfection here. So I'm going to continue placing this meat on, and this sauce looks like it has a really good flavor to it. Now I said I was going to separate the ribs from the pork loin, but it doesn't look like that's working out for me here too much. So I'm going to just kind of mix them up. That looks like a nice rib end right there. Okay. That looks like it. You know, this is about approximately, I know I said 10 pounds of meat in the beginning, but this was approximately about 8 pounds of meat, just so you know, just so I could correct that. And as I'm feeling the bottom of this pan, bottom of the pot, there is a lot of bones in here. See, so you want to get rid of that. You just don't want to put that in your sauce with the pasta, that's all. Just be careful when you're doing it, that's all. I mean, the bones here are pretty big. I know sometimes I use pork neck bones, and those bones tend to be like really small, and you kind of miss that, so. These are a lot, these you'll definitely see. All right, so that's good there with our sauce. I'll leave my sauce right here for now. And we're gonna get our pasta ready since I just heard the timer go off. All right, we're going to keep that right here like that. Keep my sauce covered. There you go. As I get my pasta ready, I'm going to just take a taste. And it actually looks perfect. Perfect, perfect. Just like the directions on the box said it would be. All right, I'm going to just drain my pasta. I have a strainer in the sink. Straining out my pasta. There you go, perfect. A couple pieces right in the pot here. I'm going to get rid of it all. Grab my hand, there you go. Okay, perfect. All right. There's our pasta. While that strains a little bit, I'm going to get my, put some sauce in my pasta bowl. And what I like to do is, I just like to take the sauce and just put it right in the bottom of the bowl. Just like that, swirl it around a little bit. I'm going to put a little bit more. Now we're using 2 pounds of pasta because we have people coming over today for lunch. And so I'm going to use a lot more sauce in the bottom. That's good. Bring my bowl right over here. Give my strainer a good shake. Make sure we get all the water out. looks pretty dry. I'm gonna give it just a couple more. Yep, that looks pretty good. I'm gonna put my pasta in the bowl. Oh, it looks like I picked a perfect bowl for this pasta. And what I'll do next is I'm gonna put some sauce on top of there. And you know, it's nice too because there's a little bit of little bits of pork in this sauce that's going to make it taste so much better as it's going around. And there you go. That looks pretty good. Going to just mix this around a little bit. Get the sauce from the bottom up to the top. The sauce from the top down to the bottom. So the pasta has a pretty good coating of tomato sauce on it. There we go. Look at that. All right, perfect. Gonna give that going a little bit more. That looks pretty good. All right, and there's always extra sauce in the pot if anybody wants it, as I tell everybody when they come over to eat. And I'm gonna just put a little sauce on top of that. And this makes enough sauce for 2 pounds of pasta. And if you want to use, again, usually like thin spaghetti, fettuccine, thin linguine, that's going to take a little more sauce than normal. But if you use like a ziti or like a cup fusilli, you could probably make 3 pounds of this. So there's our pasta, ready to go. Move this to the side. So we have our pork meat, we have our pasta, and we have our side of broccoli rabe. So there you go, complete dinner. Did it in 2 parts, so I just want to make sure you get the sense of how to make this pork. But that's it. So you have your fettuccine with pork loin, southern style rib, tomato sauce, and broccoli rabe with olive oil and garlic. So when I see you again, till I see you again, I should say, this is One Take Frank. Have a great rest of your day. God bless you guys. And if you like these videos, please hit the subscribe button. That'd be great. All right. See you later. Bye-bye.